Welcome to Strip Cover Lit, where we squeeze the bigger picture out of literature. I'm Adrian Ford, and we're here for Chapter 7, Episode 7, as we journey chapter by chapter through Stardust by Neil Gaiman. This is Chapter 7, So What Happened? This chapter is called, At the Sign of the Chariot. The star and the unicorn are in rough shape as they stumble towards an inn. The inn to which we have previously been introduced. But the unicorn refuses to go near it. The star does not take heed. The star still coerces the unicorn towards the inn and ultimately into the stables, where the witch queen then the witch queen draws a bath. The witch queen does not draw a bath in the stables. But that bath is awfully nice to our star. And it's a little creepy because the star is taking a bath. The witch queen, she's there too. Then she leaned over and touched the star's chest between her breasts with one cold finger, and she smiled. "A good, strong heart," she said. There were good people on this benighted world, the star decided, warmed and contented. Outside, the rain and the wind pattered and howled through the mountain pass. But in the inn, at the sign of the chariot, all was warm and comfortable. It's a little bit weird, but hey, whatever rocks your Casbah there, Mr. Gaiman. Shortly thereafter, Tristan and Primus show up. At the end, as Tristan is putting the horse down for the evening, he has a run-in with the unicorn. The unicorn, it turns out, is telling him that the broth which has been brought out for him, it's poisoned. Can you hear my neighbor right now? Ridiculous. Madness. Hard to focus. Turns out the broth is poisoned. Promptly, Tristan consults his leaf, because that's what you do, right, in that circumstance. Back in the inn, Primus declines food and drink because he doesn't trust anyone until he sees his own brother's corpse. Then he pauses while observing the star, and he says to her, if I can get to the right pages here, can't make my fingers work. He says to her, he walked over to the star and stared into her eyes for several heartbeats. "You," he hesitated. Then with certainty, "You have my father's stone. You have the power of Stormhold." To which she obviously replies. The girl looked up at him with eyes the blue of sky. "Well then," she said, "ask me for it, and I can have done with the stupid thing." Then Tristan bursts in to tell Primus about the poison, and the witch kills Primus. She kills him, slits his throat. Pew, done. And because she is in control of the innkeeper and the innkeeper's daughter, she sends them to kill Tristan instead of taking care of him herself. Alas, our beloved unicorn pops in, fights off the daughter, impales the man, kills him dead. Kills the innkeeper. Oh, yeah. Then the witch sort of storms towards the unicorn and kills the unicorn. We've got a lot of death. Finally, it all wraps up where it should. It all wraps up, makes sense, does exactly what happens. Tristan burns the whole place down, which includes the witch and the innkeeper's daughter's unconscious body. I think that's what happens. I am not 100% sure. It is a weird, strangely written little bit there, but there's only, as far as I can tell, a couple things to talk about with this chapter, including the volume of My Neighbor's Television. On 156, we get some information from the witch herself. After all, it's been many a long year since I was maiden enough to touch a unicorn. Interesting. Far out. But really, at the bottom of page 158, outside there was a gust of wind, and the fire flared up green and blue and white. Then a deep voice boomed from outside the inn. Over the howl of the elements, service, food, wine, fire. Where is the stable boy? Billy, the innkeeper, and his daughter made no move, but only looked out at the woman in the red dress as if for instruction. This is the scene as the Witch Queen has already brainwashed the two innkeepers, the innkeeper and his daughter, and the star is showing up. The star is showing up to find shelter. She's demanding shelter. I want to use this a little bit as a metaphor for life. If we just go through the motions in life, if we find ourselves just quote unquote doing our jobs, we wake up, we go through the motions, we come home, we go to bed. We do not know in whose employ we will find ourselves. Here, the innkeeper and his daughter, simply running an inn, simply doing what they do. They are looking for instruction to the witch. The witch promptly leads each of them to their deaths. It was said that what's the old saying? An unobserved life is not worth living. An unsomething life is not worth living. Can't think of who said Plato. An unobserved life is not worth living. An unquestioned life is not worth living. An unsomething life is not worth living. You know what I'm talking about. It's an old phrase. You know it. It's out there. You can find it if you don't. But I think it's worse than that. The unobserved life, the unquestioned life, is not just not worth living. It's dangerous. Hold on. I'm trying to remember. What is the phrase? Unexamined. Off the top of my mind. Totally just thought of that. Totally from memory. It comes to us from Socrates, like I said. The unexamined life is not worth living. The unexamined life is worse than not worth living. The unexamined life might get you killed. The unexamined life might get your loved ones killed. The unexamined life might lead to the end of civilization. Now, that sounds preposterous. It does. But the unexamined life might lead you directly into contributing to some greater form of evil or decay. Here, we have the innkeeper and his daughter leading an unexamined evening, falling prey to the witch, and ultimately meeting both of their own ends. Ends in the inn. Something to be had there. The last thing that I have to talk about, we have two more examples here in this chapter of Tristan seemingly, instinctively knowing something. But if we dig a little bit deeper, it is not instinctively. Remember, instinctively, like how Tristan knew how to stop the battle between the unicorn and the lion. But it wasn't instinctive, was it? No, it was because of a nursery rhyme. Here we have two more instances where Tristan seems to be divinely inspired, but it is not inspiration from the divine. It is inspiration from children's rhymes. It is inspiration from other forms of literature. Now, acting instinctively might seem from time to time as if it is divinely inspired. Acting instinctively might also be inspired by tales of what we're supposed to do. Now, leave it to a fiction writer such as Gaiman to aggrandize the act of fiction, to be that which inspires, to be that which is to be followed, to be that which is normal and natural and what should be. But we recognize it the other way sometimes, don't we? Not as something which is divinely inspired, but something which has a work of fiction which has taken its direction from something else, from some part of nature. Think of The Hero with a Thousand Faces. Think of The Hero's Journey. Think of Joseph Campbell. These stories of these heroes seem to work so beautifully, seem to strike us as good story. That's a good story. Why does it strike us like a good story? Because there's something very familiar about it. Here we have Tristan answering the call, striking out on his own, finding trials and tribulations, hearkening back to other forms of literature, remembering children's tales of old. I'm not sure it works here. I don't think that Neil Gaiman has quite pulled off the trick that he thinks he has. This does not come across as, this isn't bad writing, but it does at times feel awfully convenient. That is all I have for this episode of Stardust, the 7th in a 13-part series. I'll meet you back here next time for part 8 of the 13-part series.